birthday. He was a few years ahead of me, but I was much younger.
He died pretty young then.
Yeah, he died pretty young. Can you just say something about what you collect? I know what you collect, John, but talk to these people so they know.
Yeah, I just have a small collection of, the normal common machines, mostly Edison. I see somebody brought out a 5, Amarillo 5, a 5, a 6. Model 5075, big Edison disc machine. What is it, a C250? And a couple of machines, a couple of Victor machines. I think my dad probably bought one of them here. He has a Victor D. And what's the other machine? So I got a couple of the little Victors, the one over there, Victor 4.
Still have that interest in Pathé?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, well, you're sitting beside another Pathé collector here.
I got lucky. Blaine decided to sell me his Pathé, and I was very pleased with the machine.
Oh, good. Thanks. So are there any announcements people want to bring? Oh, my goodness. Yep, okay.
Oh, you first. Oh, no, you're the new guy.
Dave was first, anyways. Okay. Yeah.
April 21st in Port Huron, Michigan. That's across from Sarnia, if you aren't familiar with it. I run the Edison Depot Museum there, where Thomas Edison grew up. And April 21st, I'm leading a tour through Port Huron, starting at the museum, a guided tour, and then various sites with Thomas Edison related experiences. The building where Walker's Jewelry Store was, where he got his first job as a telegraph operator, and the hotel where he stayed at, the photography studio where he sat for many portraits, where the movie Young Tom Edison had its world premiere. Then we'll go up to the local cemetery and visit the graves of his family. They're all buried there in Port Huron. And, that's on Sunday, April 21st. I think it starts at 1 o'clock, but I can't recall right now. We don't even have our advertising out for it yet. But if you're interested, you could just Google Port Huron Museum and get the information that way. I know it's a long drive, it's a long shot, but I thought I'd throw it out there anyhow.
Yes, I will be giving the talk on June the 3rd meeting, and it's about your favorite records or your favorite recording. So far I have had a response, so an email has flooded in. I would obviously like some more to make this meeting worthwhile. So if anybody has their suggestions about what their favorite record will be, you can email me. My email is actually at the end of this article and here in your latest APN. So please contact me. I will be bringing along a electric turntable and a gramophone. So if anybody doesn't want their record to be played on an acoustic machine, I have the electric also. All right?
I'm sure everybody's got it.
Or of course you can approach me during the break and we can talk about it.
Yeah. Everybody must have one record. Bill?
Yeah, I'm researching the Bell Piano and Organ Company out of Guelph, Ontario, for an article which may be in the next issue of APN. I got interested in this because we turned up a couple of photographs, photographs of outdoor signs advertising Victor records and Victor gramophones for sale at Bell's. And we have the address on Yonge Street. So I started to research this, and I'm wondering, does anyone have a Victor machine that has Bell Piano and Organ Company as on a fabulous! I'll speak to you at the break. As like a decal or on the cabinet itself. And the second thing was apparently Bell introduced in the mid-20s their own gramophone called a Bell Euphonic. Has anyone ever heard of one? Have one? Have any information about one? There's apparently one in the Guelph Museum, and I've yet to drive to Guelph to see that. Okay, thank you.
I didn't know they had a museum.
Start small.
The next thing on my list is the news events. So There's the Wayne show coming up in April, and Stanton's coming up in April. First ones I can think of.
What date's the Wayne?
The Wayne show is April 9th. April 9th. 8th and 9th. So, will we get the 50/50 draw set up?
Oh,
We will,
absolutely.
it's here, so we'll get that up and running, so during the break, people remember to, I'll remind you again at the end.
No terrorists.
Okay, so the last thing on, yes?
Well, I don't want to take up too much. I have an auction sale in a couple of months, but there won't be any phonograph stuff in it at all. Just old furniture and antiques and junk. So,
Make room for your photographs.
Yeah.
yeah, well, I'm just making more room, that's all. They're just emptying garages, so,
Okay,
let me know what it is, like if anybody's interested.
okay. Okay, well, again, yes?
I mentioned to Bill that I did not get notification of the meeting.
Yeah, we've heard that in the past. You know, you have to check your junk mail. That's the first thing you have to do. With all the securities and the updates that have been, I think, since January of this year, a lot of your stuff is going into junk mail. Sorry.
No,
I'm on junk mail every day.
No,
I got stuff back.
I looked there too.
And it's not there?
It's not there.
Same thing.
Same thing? Okay, well, that's all I can say is the first thing. Short of that, we'll just check that, things, yeah, things just happen, sorry.
Why don't we send out a test email?
Oh, we did that in February. I had Vince send me a test email, and I got it fine.
No, send it to everyone, just to confirm that we're getting it.
Yep.
Just send one like a couple weeks from now, just to see if we're getting it.
Just put test in the subject and send it, you don't have to put it in the
If you don't get it, you will.
No, but we'll know we didn't get it, because if we know you're going to send it in 2 weeks.
we'll get it in.
So, I mean, just the people in the room and not through video.
Or just, I don't know, whoever you send it to.
You're right, Mark.
Okay.
Why don't we mention it to Vince? Because Vince can go on and he can actually look to see if you got it. We went through this with Dave.
And you know what happens with Gmail is it sorts it out into junk mail and then social and promotions. And this kept going to something called social at the top. I never even looked in there before.
Okay, who didn't receive it? 3 people that are here, I know. Okay, I'll mention it to Vince, because Vince has the ability to check and see, did you really get it? So Ed and John, and
I wonder
3
if
of you
there's a
didn't
common,
get it.
if they're common email systems though. What are you using?
Hotmail?
Hotmail.
There,
Yeah.
okay.
Good.
Good point.
No problem.
So, yeah,
Something happened to me later last year. I didn't get it for 2 months, and I called the Vince. He said, somehow you were not there any longer.
got it.
Yours is Hotmail as well, isn't it?
I was cancelled for some reason.
Yeah, but your Hotmail as well?
Hotmail.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll mention it to Vince. I talk to Vince quite often. I'll say all the Hotmail ones didn't seem to get there. At least we got something. Off and doing a little bit of the early part of the presentation. And then Paul Doddington's going to be working with me. And he's going to be doing the sort of the last half of the presentation. Basically about the presentation, what we're going to be doing is we're going to start right at the very beginning, and we're going to go through a lot of the early development of the machines. Because if you don't understand the machines, the cylinders just aren't going to quite click in. So I'm going to start there and go through that. We're going to talk about the early 2-minute cylinders. We're going to get to the 5-minute cylinders. And we will probably get up to about this period, these cylinders right down here. This takes us up to about 1900, the year's 1900. Or did everybody see that? I got 2 of them. We'll do that bottom row. Oh, sure. They all go out? Yep. Okay, yep, that's good. So we'll go through that bottom. That's probably about as far as we're going to get today, and then next year I'll continue on. I was going to do the whole show and do all the cylinders, and I knew that when I was doing it, I was skipping the 5-inch cylinder because I just didn't have the time and I didn't know much about them. So in talking to Paul, I knew Paul knew a lot about it, so Paul's really going to take over that period. I'm going to try and get you through the early part of the presentation. So you know, we all understand this machine, acoustic tinfoil. It was in December of 1877. Edison gave a sketch to John Crucy to make the first machine capable of both recording and reproducing the human voice. So we've all heard about other little examples of somebody recorded this earlier and they did that earlier and stuff. This was the first machine that did both. It had to record and then it had to play it back. So one of the interesting things I wanted to point out in this slide presentation right here is there is a piece of note paper right up here. And it's over there for you people. That piece of note paper, Edison actually talks about, from the lab, Edison actually talks about, instead of using tin foil, using a piece of paper with wax on it. So that was the reason that it was shown in this book that I had. And the other picture I put up there, because it's very, very hard to understand, for me at least, how this machine worked. And it was this drawing here that finally really explained to me how the early tin foil worked. So you'd take your tin foil and you would wrap it around the cylinder here. And then there was an adjustment by turning the screw over here and then turning this in so the whole recorder would move in until that stylus was just touching the tin foil. And then they would turn the crank and talk into it, and then they would make their recording. Back it out, go back to the beginning of the piece of tin foil and play it through. So I just put this picture up here so it's easy to understand how these tin foil machines work.
Blaine?
Yeah.
Not to be a know-it-all, though, what you showed was the playback.
Was that the playback one?
The recorder just had a little stylus on a metal diaphragm.
Oh, it was right on the diaphragm, was it? Oh.
Yeah. I did.
That's Lenny's book. He's a curator of the museum. Really?
That's the playback, not the recorder.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the curator of the museum down in Wayne, New Jersey. That's his book that I got this from.
So, what is the stylus made of then? So, seeing this little rod with a blob on the end, does that need to be very hard?
Metal, it's rounded and highly polished.
Yeah, it's just a sharp metal point. Yeah, I've
This
seen
is the only one that has a separate recorder and playback. The rest,
It's not that sharp.
Yeah. Just be sharp enough to get the phonograph, but not so sharp it's going to cut it.
Not cut it.
It would be a touchy thing.
It'd be difficult to set up and then play back.
it must be for an adjustment, I'm not sure.
One of the things, you know, in going through this and always learning about Edison is understanding, it's called the Crucy machine because it was John Crucy who actually built the machine and put it together. In fact, the three of these people did. John Crucy, he was a Swiss clockmaker and he was a machinist. John Knott was a mechanic. And Charles Batchelor, he worked in the textile industry. So it was these three people who put the machine together and actually got it working. So, and I want you to, these names are going to come up again as we go through the progress of the development of the machines and the phonograph. So I just wanted to mention that they're here at the very beginning. A lot of you have always seen the picture on the left. We all know that one. That's the iconic photo of Edison sitting there. But at the same day, same time, same studio, Edison actually invited Batchelor to stand in and have the photo taken at the same time. So I'm sort of interested to see this. These photos were taken in 1878 when they were invited to Washington. By 1878, Edison's interest had turned to the development of the incandescent light bulb, and under the terms of the contract in November 1878 with the newly formed Edison Electric Light Company, He was unable to work on the phonograph for the next 10 years. Meanwhile, all of Edison's phonograph patents went into a company called the Edison Speaking Phonograph Company. So that's important to remember, because many times I hear collectors talking and they say, well, Edison sort of forgot about it for 10 years and went off and he had so much other work to do. Well, it's true, he did, but he was under contract. He could not go and work on the phonograph for 10 years. So he's out of it from 1878 to 1888. So if you're interested in sort of what happened, where did he go, he was spending a lot of time with the light bulb and the electric company, which went on to become General Electric. So what else is happening then in the phonograph business? By January 1886, Edison still got 2 years left on his contract, Charles Sumner Tainter had 6 working prototypes in the Volta Laboratory in Washington. These machines proved so satisfactory that the Volta Laboratory decided to form a joint stock company called the Volta Graphophone Company. In the summer, and this is interesting, in the summer of 1887, the New American Graphophone Company, knowing that Edison's patents were basic and that the graphophone was loosely based on Edison's patents and that the graphophone patents hadn't even been tested yet, Charles Tainter proposed that they visit Edison to see if Edison might be amenable to joining forces to organize and start an entirely new company manufacturing graphophones. So what did Edison do? The workaholic Edison called in sick that day. Didn't even show up when Tainter and everybody showed up. But they did come, and they left a machine with Edison. This is 1887. So this is the replica that Merrick's built. So if you saw the article that was in the APN that we did, this is a very, very close replica of it. I won't go into all the troubles. Merrick explained all the troubles that they did have running this machine. It didn't work well, but it did work. It did record. It did play back. They used wax on a cardboard cylinder. But finally Edison gets his act together. So, in truth, Edison was furious and said he would have nothing to do with a company that used his phonograph, named backward, graphophone. If you look at it, they've just changed the 2 names around. Edison was now spurred on to developing his favorite invention, the phonograph. Edison had developed his idea for a solid wax cylinder and entrusted the actual composition of the wax to his trusted chemist, J.W. Aylesworth. Edison filed his application at the end of 1887 and was granted the patent on the solid wax cylinder, tapering on May 5, 1888. The first cylinders were composed of Saracen, which is a white paraffin wax derived from ozercite, stearic acid, and beeswax. Edison made an interesting comment. Although that's what they were claiming, that there was beeswax in the cylinders, I found another quote where Edison said, "There aren't enough bees in the world making wax for me to make phonograph cylinders." This really is a very, very interesting period if you want to study the phonograph, because there's so many things going on and happening and changing, and half of it you can't even believe. Just going to bring me up to the next picture here. Well, before I leave this one, this photo is taken June 16, 1888. So there's Edison. This is an iconic photo. For years I've seen this photo and I've always had what I thought was going on in this photo. What do you think is happening? What's happening? What does this photo represent to you? You've all seen it, right?
I think he's been drinking.
Yeah.
What I think it is that there was this myth about the Wizard of Menlo Park, and this is just adding to that image. That's what it's all about.
It's marketing. You're absolutely right.
Say,
Anything else? What do you think about this photo? I'm going to tell you shortly what's going on. Yes?
I've always understood that this picture, he worked
like 24 hours straight or even longer.
Yeah,
And he's
72 hours.
really, really, really tired.
Yeah.
And he does look really, really tired.
Yeah. Me, he looks pretty stressed.
He was really trying to come up with a repeatable coffee.
I look like that after I spend 5 hours on a machine and I can't get it to work. So, frustration, yeah. Yeah, frustration is a good word, stress. What do you think's going on in this period? No, when did my computer go to sleep? No, I'll go on. So here's the next photo that's taken 30 minutes later. Same date, early in the morning, 5:30. But here he's got the team around him. All the people that have spent the last 5 days, 72 hours working with them. So here's Fred Ott sitting down there beside Edison. So beside Edison, the person by the name of George, how do you say his name? Goran? Gouraud. Okay. He's the agent in England who is waiting to rush the improved phonograph to England. Can I back up to this one? Do you know what this machine's called? The perfected phonograph. Perfected from what?
The improved.
The improved. Not only that, Gouraud is here to pick up his shipment and take them back. 30 minutes later, am I missing something? Like, did he already have phonographs working? I think so. So then the people standing in the back, a lot of them are, again, there's Charles Batchelor up here. He was involved in the Christie machine. And John Ott, again, he was involved in the Christie machine. But it's this interesting character over here. Oh, sorry. I'm missing the button. Gouraud over here, who's the agent from England. He's here to pick up his shipment of improved phonograph cylinders that he's going to take over to England. And I always assumed he was probably going to take one of these perfected phonograph cylinders, and I didn't know that until today when Mark showed me a picture of Gouraud sitting at his home in England with a perfected cylinder on his desk, right? The picture you just showed me, a few months later. So he obviously took one of these home. So the other thing I wanted to mention, what's going on in cylinders in Edison's head right at this moment? Well, at this time, Edison is in a huge battle with George Washington over the light bulb and whether it should be AC or DC. Edison has just put out a lawsuit to Westinghouse, suing every associate and distributorship and little company that was associated with Westinghouse. So he's got a huge lawsuit out there. He's short of money. JP Morgan is after him. The shares in the companies are falling. So he's under a lot of, what do you say, frustration? So Westinghouse has a very, very good point. The light bulb, they're saying, okay, yeah, sure, Edison, you invented the light bulb. You didn't invent the light bulb, you just invented a light bulb. And you never did really prove that your light bulb worked very long. You would turn it on, quickly turn it off. And that was the whole ordeal with the light bulb. And you probably heard rumors around here too that there was Canadians who actually invented the light bulb ahead of Edison. It's just Edison got to the shop and he got his patents in, and he did have a working light bulb. So, and he bought a lot of patents. He was a smart businessman. I'm not going to take that away from him. But I'm just, in that picture there, I see a man that's pretty frustrated and he's having a rough go of it.
May I interject something here?
Yes, please.
One of the other things that they're doing, he had not been defending his patent for the past almost 10 years. And if it can be shown in a court of law that you're doing nothing with your invention,
right?
It's very important to have proof. And here's proof.
And
right when
we had to do that.
When the Columbia interests are coming along, or in Rathbone Company people are coming along, this is proof. There's all these people whose names are associated with the original one.
Yeah, Graphophone gave him a working copy 1 year earlier.
Yeah.
A working machine.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So this is what he's doing. He's trying to establish his ownership of his own patent.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Here's something else. This is going to happen 10 days later now. And don't tell me Edison wasn't thinking about this. Jesse Lippincott. You're going to hear that name quite a bit. Jesse Lippincott bought all of Edison's patents, had all the rights to his machines, all of Edison's patents, all of Edison's machines, sole distributorship 10 days later, June 28, 1988. He also had already bought up a sole distributorship for the Graphophone company. So on this date, 10 days after Edison was sitting and just got his machine working, he's now sold it all. It's all gone. He got $500,000 for it. I think that's pretty good. But he gave it up. He lost it. Jesse Lippincott, he sold his glass tumbler business. That's what Jesse used to do. He made glass tumblers. He actually got paid several $1 million. Sort of a flamboyant character. Didn't look after his health very well. So, and didn't have a very good idea of how to run a business. But Edison did retain that he would do the manufacturing for Jesse. So he was going to make all of his phonographs. Graphophone went off and made theirs as well. But Edison retained this. So from 1888 to 1890, Edison is busy making his cylinders, making his phonographs, and they're done in this facility here, which is on the, it's all torn down now, but it was on the site in Wayne, New Jersey. So if you go to the Wayne show, you get to see some of the buildings that are left. Here's Graphophone's machine. Yes?
So the reason Edison sold was only money. You really needed the money, was it?
500,000, I think so. I know J.P. Morgan is after him for the drop in price of his shares.
Because it wasn't a lack of interest, was it?
Oh, it wasn't. No, not a lack of interest at all. But money. And he had so many other things going on we haven't talked about. What are some of the things you and I were talking about, Dave, on the way down here? The other businesses he had going, the mining industry, and some of those, all of those things were going on. Portland Cement, all of those things are going. So he had a lot of fingers in the fire. So. But this is what the American Graphophone company had going, their treadle-operated machine. So this is for the purpose of dictation and retyping up then. So it was purely a commercial reason that they did this machine. Now here's a picture here that I wanted to show you. Oh, where did I? So Jesse Lippincott and the North American Phonograph Company, they licensed subsidiaries in exclusive territories to lease phonographs. Soon there were 32 licensed companies in the U.S. Sub-companies in turn leased the phonographs to their customers. So that's what Jesse had set up, just this distributorship. So technical and marketing problems prevented the North American Phonograph Company from establishing a profitable talking business. By 1889, all the licensed sub-companies are having difficulties keeping their businesses profitable. Bear in mind that the phonograph these companies had were capable of both recording and playing back voice and music. And that fact alone changed everything, because this business just isn't going to go anywhere. But what I wanted to point out in this slide right here, these women are using the improved phonograph. So quickly, I don't know if I could flip back. But the difference, to just quickly see them, I think I'll see it in the next slide. No. The quick difference between them when you look at them, the perfected phonograph has that governor ball assembly up on the top. And these ones, there's the women that are using these machines, that ball isn't up there. The governor isn't in there. These were all battery operated. They were always killing the batteries. They were going dead all the time. They were too technical. They had a lot of complaints from all the people who were using them.
Didn't the batteries explode or leak a lot?
Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't know enough not to short it out. What's that, right? That would explode your battery. So, but this changed everything now, okay? So I'm a little bit out of sequence with this picture. I'm going to go back in time, but this is the only one I could find. Many of the distributors, because they're losing money, the commercial side of it isn't going. Many of these distributors turn to exploiting the phonograph for entertainment, to stay in business, creating an industry of early recording studios. So think about it, right? So you can't make money doing dictation. Now you can make money selling cylinders with music on it, but who's got a recording studio? Who's doing that? So a lot of smaller companies, all these little subsidiaries out there, they started doing that, and they started making their own recordings. Louis Glass, this is the one that you'll know. Louis Glass, manager of the Pacific Phonograph Company, which was one of these distributors out in San Francisco, he was up against the same situation as the other local companies. He equipped one of his electric motor-operated Edison phonographs with a nickel slot operating the mechanism so that it may be used as an entertainment machine in the Palais Royal Garden in San Francisco. He did that in November 1889. So we are very fortunate today. We have one of these very, very early cylinders. Dave Dazer had a copy, and he's lent it to us today. So some of the other distributors copied this development and started their own phonograph parlors in search of what they called, I like this term, coin money. So one such company was the Michigan Electric Company that advertised a complete stock of phonographs, graphophones, and supplies for talking machines. Now Harry McDonough, if you know him, he was a singer from Hamilton. He recorded his first cylinders for the Michigan Electric Company, and he said that these cylinders were not sold, but merely used in their phonograph parlor on the slot machines in use at that time. So we're going to try and set up now, and we're going to play the cylinder. Yeah, let's turn the light on, please. We'll get this set up. So here's the cylinder. And on the rim out here, as you can see in the picture, it says the Electric Michigan Company. So this came off one of these nickel slot machines. You realize that the last person to play this and hear it, I asked Dave, he hadn't played it, so I was the last person to play it and hear it. But now you're going to hear what the person ahead of me heard, and he paid a nickel to hear this play. So we can pass the cup around, we can all give Dave a nickel. See, I think we're going to need the microphone. So I've listened to it, so that's why I asked if we could maybe bring in a microphone and we'll play this. Just while we're setting this up, I have to explain these early wax cylinders that they were making. This is home recording, right? Like these guys they don't understand, they don't have the science in the lab at Edison. So this was almost a home recording that was made. The other thing is these wax cylinders where they were making, you can only play them back. Edison even said somewhere between 50 and 150 times. And then you've worn them out a little bit. So.
If you make them for quite a while after that, I got a box full of all just off-weight cylinders.
But
I don't know if they're old or not. I've had them for about 50 years now.
Yeah, I wouldn't know without looking. You'd have to listen to the title, hear the title. I have the book that have a whole discography that can tell you when.
To find them first.
So you have to find them.
Bring them to my place.
Yeah, you can play them there. This one happened to be, it had the stamp on the edge, and that's why we knew right away. So, okay, you're going to work that? Okay, so I'm going to work this. thankful to hear that. I'm sure this is at the end of the life of this cylinder, but you all want your nickel back, right? Oh, this would be recorded in the early 1890s. And I'll explain why in a few minutes. Is it tuned in?
Yeah.
Have we heard enough? Yeah, we've heard enough, yeah.
It's not very quiet. You can't hear very much through the horn at all, right?
No, that's why we have that yes down it.
Those early cylinders should not be played on those machines. Should be played on a floating, with a floating reproducer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a B reproducer.
It's still too
Still?
much for that.
Yeah.
It should be played on a Columbia machine with a floating reproducer.
Oh. Would be any louder, do you think?
It means they were, I find it those.
What I used to play them is a Triumph with a Model O reproducer counterbalance. Huge counterbalance. And you can hang stuff out on the end. And you can make very, very light, but you've got a huge diaphragm, so you get much better sound.
Oh, you would get more
That's how
from
I
the
recorded
diaphragm.
all
Yeah.
my Class M cylinders. I don't like playing them on a Class M because it's very
Those
tough
are
on
too,
cylinders.
even the B is too heavy for them.
Yeah.
And even still, it's not very loud.
Right.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. So, can I get the light off here? So, by 1890, this is what Edison's busy. I really love this photograph. So 1890, Edison in the phonograph works is quite busy. Here he is. He's busy supplying blank cylinders and phonograph. Throughout 1890 to 1894, Jesse Lippincott, the North American Phonograph Company, has a failing business and owes the Edison Phonograph Works money for the machines and the cylinders that were supplied. Jesse Lippincott died in 1894, and the American Graphophone Company tried to take control of the North American Phonograph Company. That's, we'll call it later, that's the Columbia Company, now trying to take over Jesse Lippincott's business. And the reason they want to do that is because that company, remember, they just paid $500,000 for Edison's patent. They own the patent. So Columbia, at that time, we'll call it Columbia because we all know it by Columbia. Columbia is trying to gain control of Edison's patents. So Edison, to protect his interests, forces the North American Phonograph Company, that's Jesse Lippincot's business, forces them into receivership due to the money owed to him in 1894 to gain control of his patents. But in doing so, Edison has to wait until 1896, another 2 years, to repurchase his patents, and is out of the phonograph industry for 2 years. Edison then incorporates the National Phonograph Company in 1896. So that's important. So you're sort of understanding what's happened there. Edison gave it up. And they tried to do all that dictaphone business. That didn't go. They didn't buy back his patent, so he's out of business again for another 2 years. But meanwhile, he's still got the Edison Phonograph Works. He's still got that distributorship out there that wants cylinders, albeit not for dictation and stenographers. So his shop, this is a picture here, interesting, in 1890. I really, really like this photo because of all the things that you're going to see in here. So, let's see, oh, sorry. Where's my photo? So there's Edison's slot machine. So he's got one of these sitting here. This is a perfected phonograph here with the governor on the end. Sitting over here is the improved phonograph. All across the back wall here are the perfected phonograph machines. There's 2 treadle machines sitting here, and then here's a guy boring out, working on the cylinders. Just lots of interesting things in that photo, and I love looking at it, peering through and trying to see all the things that, gee, I wish I had now, but I don't. During the first half of the 1890s, the Americans were listening to recorded music at the phonograph parlors. Very few people could afford to own a phonograph, and by the way, Jesse Lippincott controlled the manufacture and distribution of cylinder phonographs in the United States and Canada. The North American Phonograph Company had granted the Edison Phonograph Works exclusive rights to manufacture musical phonograms at his laboratory in West Orange, New Jersey. So that's the first cylinder catalog that came out. Paul Doddington also brought a copy, one in, to show everybody today. It's from London, England, and again, theirs is called the phonograph. So these are the very first ones that came out, first cylinders that were being issued, were being sent out. So this is what, if you wanted one, that's what you got.
I might just say that first of all, they call them phonograms, not records.
Yeah.
And very soon people start, because a telegram is a thing that you send through a telegraph, so phonogram is something that you make on a phonograph, okay? So they're thinking about existing technology, okay?
Yeah,
so that's
terminology.
Yeah, and so that little magazine there was actually published in 1893 in England.
So still calling it phonogram by
They're calling
then.
it phonogram because it was a trade magazine. So that's why that word, yeah.
So we're going to talk a little bit now about the early recordings, how they made their early wax cylinders. This is a recording studio. This was Edison's recording studio. But I do want to mention at this point, before we get too far into it, this recording studio Edison had set up well into the 1900s down in Wayne, New Jersey. And when people walked through, sure enough, Edison would say, yeah, that's how we do our recordings, and that's how we make our wax cylinders. So I'm going to go through this, I'm going to talk about it, but both Paul and I will tell you, by 1891, Edison has actually got molded wax cylinders that he's making and knows how to make. But back then, there's so much secrecy about the development and how they were making their wax cylinders and what went into making their wax cylinders. A lot of that was all secretive. But you're going to see this picture a lot. But it's a very good picture to sort of understand in the very early when they did start doing it, before they got the molded cylinders going. This is how they made their cylinders. During the first half of the 1890s, the round method. The results produced by the round method, that's what they called it. This method could be so inconsistent that some early cylinder companies resorted to grading their output. The need for constant remakes made it difficult for record companies to obtain the services of celebrity performers who could not spare the time for frequent visits to the recording studio. The result was a new breed of artists who made their living primarily in the recording studio, some of whom dominate the Edison catalog. And that's why you see Edison, Peerless, Quartet, etc., etc. These guys just lived there. And they just go in, and once the masters wore out, they'd make another set. After Edison received complaints about the quality of the records delivered by the North American Phonograph Company, which is a local company, due in part during shipment, that's what Edison said, he shut down. So Edison shut down the music room operations. Edison suggested it might be more satisfactory for the different phonograph companies to make their own records. Does that sound like Edison? Yeah. By 1892, there were 8 sub-companies producing records for the North American Phonograph Company. So later on, I'll probably get to it, and I'll show you some of the other slides, pictures of other companies that were making cylinders at the same time. But here's the biggie. Well, we should talk a little bit about this. So, and please, Paul, you back me up if I get this wrong. So these are all set up. These are your machines. They're going to be set up recording. You're going to come and you're going to sing, or you're going to have a band in front of these, and these machines are going to record. There's 13 of them there. So they're going to do a recording. And you can bet that the master cylinder that they make on these machines are all going to be a little bit different. Is it going to be the one on the top right? Is it going to be in the middle? Is it going to be on the left? Is the stylus worn? How's the wax? So there's so much, what would you call it, inferiority going on. They're not all consistent. So that was part of the problem. But anyway, that's how they started. They'd make these 13 wax cylinders, and they'd be mastered. Yes?
How would they start 13 machines at the same time?
Even that alone,
Put a
too.
string
Yeah.
on.
They had one turn-on switch?
Yeah. You can't see it in the picture, but all those switches work sideways, and all you need to do is put them all together with a string and go boom, and they all start.
Yeah.
Some of them didn't though, because some of them start after the band has started to play.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and you get that.
So the quality is very inconsistent.
Did they announce each one individually and then record
Some
on
aren't
this?
announced, but most are.
Yeah.
And some of them have actually announced the date on which they were made. I brought one today.
And some of the recording artists had to do their own announcement.
Yeah, they did. Mostly they did, unless they, well, yeah, they did on Pathé as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's good because you hear the speaking voice.
Yeah. So here we go. Say, let's do a recording. We're going to get 13 masters off of there. And then this is Edison's next invention. So you can't run around and sell those 13 because you just can't make them fast enough. So Edison has the pantograph machine. So Edison Phonograph Works had the ability to manufacture and duplicate large amounts of cylinder records. So Edison, remember, he just told everybody, 2 minutes ago to go make your own records. So Edison offered to the sub-companies duplicates of their recordings for a charge of 35 cents per record, which is a good deal because they were buying all these Edison blanks before. So a lot of people jumped on that bandwagon. So they would send Edison a master recording, and then Edison would go ahead with this machine, and he'd start making duplicates for them. By 1893, Edison was doing 9,000 duplicates per month. So Edison claimed to be able to produce from 30 to 150 duplicates of good quality with this process from each original master. Now it should be noted that the speed of the pantogram copy process was much faster than the recordings that we do. So I put this in here. For me, again, I need simple drawings to explain how this pantograph machine works. And the drawing to the right is pretty simple and self-explanatory. You can see how it's working. So we had 13 master records. You could take those 13 master records if you wanted. You could take those 13 and play them 100 times. And then you would have on a pantograph another 1,300. But that's not in fact what they did. They would take a master and make another master. And from that, they'd wear that one out. And then they'd go back, make another sub-master, run another 100. So that's how they were doing it. They didn't want to totally wear out all their masters. So that's the process, and that's what they were doing. But here's what's happening now. Remember, 1894, Edison's out of the business again for another 2 years. So, in 1895, Columbia, so I probably missed this in my talk, I should have mentioned this earlier. When Jesse Lippincott signed on Edison and he signed off the Volta Company and the American Graphophone Company, there was one little district that Jesse Lippincott did not get control of. And that was the District of Columbia. And so that's why, to this day, Columbia had the jump on Edison, got into the phonograph business, and again, here's another example here, where they're ahead of Edison again. Because that perfected machine, you could buy it. Jesse sold them to you. They're going to cost you $100. Columbia then turns around and comes out with this spring wound machine, and this is the first one that they had. And it was selling for $40. So this is during Edison's 2-year ban. But Edison doesn't give up. So Edison's going to jump back in. But this is going to be 1896. This is when Edison's going to come up with his home phonograph. So his is $40. What with competition and everything, and I guess delivery and tax, and no matter where, depending on where you live, you could get these as cheap as $25. So I'm getting to the end of mine. I'm going to have Paul up here in a minute. I'm going to play one cylinder here for you. So can I have the light back on for a minute, please? Right. So here's this cylinder that was sold by the music dealer on Yonge Street, 197 Yonge Street, and it's a Peerless Quartet, but I don't think that's the cylinder that I have in here. I just wanted to show you how these before the Edison came out, this is the box that they had. It just says National Phonograph Company. There's no pretty label on it or anything. It's quite plain. And there's just a label on the outside. So these cylinders all came waxed. They were had just sort of a cotton sheet around them. And then again around all of this, they had a piece of tissue paper. But it's one of the things when you take this apart and take it out, it never goes back in the box. Nothing's changed. But we'll play this one. I don't believe this is the Peerless Quartet either. I think somebody got the wrong box. Columbia.
Never understood the attraction of the
I was hoping it would be one of Uncle Josh's dirty records.
Are there any?
Yes.
Oh, I would know that.
Oh, yeah. Archaeophone put out a whole CD of filthy cylinders. People went to jail.
Columbia one. Sorry. British humor. Ours.
You know, the only trouble with it is that when he busts is the rib rattle. When he's very quick. You know, he can start a mile in a minute. That is
That's it. For short of time. Yeah. I think we got another bad recording. I think I'm just about done for now. We're going to switch over to the 5-minute cylinders. And Paul Doddington's going to come up for a while. So
evidence that Edison did have a process for molding cylinders right at the beginning. There's two things that I've always felt was part of the evidence, and that was that the original machines, like the spectacle phonograph where they had a flip-flop arrangement for changing over from the recorder to the reproducer, the very earliest ones had a chisel-shaped cutter on them. So they made a groove that was kind of like a squarish groove in the wax. And if you're trying to mold a cylinder, they realized very early, they tried to make a two-piece mold. I think one of his employees' name was Worth, W-R-T-H, and there's a photograph of this in existence, this mold. But the trouble is that because the mold sort of closes around, it leaves a mark in the record, and you'd hear, it was like playing a cracked record all the time, so that obviously wasn't going to work. But what they did take advantage of was the fact that molten wax, as it cools, will shrink. So they tried molding cylinders directly off ones with a square cross-section of a groove. But the problem with that was that the wax wouldn't release from the grooves because the amount of shrinkage is very, very slight. You can only just get it out. And I don't know how many of you, I used to mold cylinders, not by molding blanks. And I found that it was very critical about temperatures and everything so that you could just slide the blank out of the mold. It was a tricky thing. So you don't have much to work with. But so what they needed to do was come up with a groove profile that would be more friendly to being released when the cylinder cooled down. And I think that Edison had that in operation in about 1890 because there is a publication which probably you can't get anymore, which is the proceeds of the procedures of the 1890 convention of all the local phonograph companies. And Edison made a presentation to them saying that he could produce any number of cylinders by a new method. And by this time, they had these other cutting styli that made a U-shaped groove that was very, very shallow and would release. You could slide the cylinder out. And I believe, and I have one here, that some of the really early cylinders that were available from Edison, Class M cylinders, and here's one right here that was with my machine when I got it. See that there is a ring, a printed ring on the end of that cylinder. You see the printed ring? And what it says on there is, it says tenor solo by George J. Gaskin, Slide Kelly Slide. Well, you're not going to print out rings. Those would be kind of tricky to make and stick them on. And the ends of these cylinders have two raised little things on them, and that ring is down inside there. And I found the remains of some of those rings with the collection of cylinders. Some of them had just come off, and this one had come off, and I just stuck it back on again. But I think that's pretty good evidence that they were molding cylinders for a little while and making them available to the people who had Class M machines. It's a properly printed ring. It's not embossed on it or anything like it. It's a paper ring that somehow gets stuck onto the end of the cylinder. And the other interesting thing about some of these cylinders is that they give the date, the recording date in the announcement, and they say duplicate. So if you were making a single master record, it wouldn't say duplicate on it, but so you sort of think, well, maybe what they're doing here is they make one master record that says duplicate on it, but every record that they sell from that is actually a duplicate recording. So I think we're gonna try to play this thing. We'll only play it once.
Good, thanks, Paul. I'll even wind up.
Yeah, we better wind it up. And I think we need the microphone for this, but actually, it's pretty clear. Good recording. Yeah. Good. We'll be 120 speed, but I can fix that. Here it is. Hear it? August 30, 1891. You want to hear the beginning again? No, that's okay. Very thin sound, you know what It's a baseball sound. I'm going to move it toward the end so we can hear the amp. Now listen to this. You have to get to the end of the record. There's a lot of cheering. There you go.
Your home recording studios.
So
I'll get that.
okay, yeah. So those were made by Edison. There's another one I'd like you to hear too, and this is kind of fun because this is typical of what would happen in recording sessions. I don't know whether this was a commercial recording. I suspect that it perhaps was, and it's in beautiful condition. And it's really fun to listen to this one. Okay, we need the mic again. Okay, yeah, okay, do that first. Yeah, we don't want to bust any of these. It's always scary bringing these things out, temperature changes and all that. Yeah. Okay. Where it starts. They're very shallow grooves in these things. Okay. Now just listen carefully to this announcement.
Getting your nickel's worth now.
Yeah. Starts all over again, and he never gets it all on the record. So he just does it again. But we're already a third of the way through it. And you can hear little speed changes too. That was the problem with those flyball governors on the very hard to keep them right on. It's getting off the track. Yeah, the temperature is not quite right, so anyway, that's enough. I don't want to ruin the recording, but it's pretty amazing how good the sound is.
You don't hear that?
I don't, but I suspect that it's probably, as far as I know, all of the records with this machine were pre-1894. And there's one Columbia cylinder that is about probably 25% shorter than the others. And it says Columbia, it says it's made in Columbia, D.C., the Columbia Phonograph Company, Washington, D.C.
Is that the small one? They call it the napkin that they made for a certain exposition?
No.
No?
No, it's a proper cylinder. It's like these, but the blank is small, and it's never been cut down. It just was made that way. So I don't know who molded it or what happened there. Anyway, before we put, maybe I'll let you do that. I wiggle too much. Okay, now we go to the 5-inch cylinders. Well, Edison in the pantographic system was using 5-inch diameter cylinders because of the high surface speed on the thing. And the high surface speed gives you much better clarity and fidelity. And not only that, but the large mandrel on the machine has a flywheel effect the way a disc machine has a flywheel effect. This is one of the reasons that cylinders really didn't catch on very well, particularly with people who liked music. People like myself have trouble listening to cylinders because it's hard to keep the pitch right on them. They're wandering and they're fluttering, sort of like a bad tape. Do you remember the old cassette tapes when they'd flutter? That's what the problem was with standard size cylinders, but of course they're dealing with space constraints because everything that we know about recording ever since has been make it more compact all the time. This is always what they're trying to do. Well, Columbia, I guess Columbia and Edison, earlier in the, maybe in the 1896 on, are using 5-inch large diameter cylinders in order to pantograph onto other cylinders because they didn't end up with so many bad records in the end. You just have better success with it. And these records are huge, and you may have seen them. Here's one from England. This is an Edison Bell grand concert record, and it's called, it says London Records on there. So I won't take it right out, but they're enormous big things, you see. But we're going to play one. I don't want to play that one, but I want you to hear how good these things sound. So Columbia, by selling machines that were originally designed to make pantograph cylinders, could sell these machines to people who wanted the very best in fidelity. So that forced Edison into making a similar machine. It was only a matter of just a few weeks or months earlier that Edison had to come out with his own machine that he would sell. It's called the concert phonograph, not to be confused with the later concerts, which were the opera machine, but they were conjoined from using opera because I think U.S. Everlasting had already, got hold of that name. So these ones are interesting because they, when you're pantographing, you can run the cylinder at whatever speed you want, and whatever it happens to be, you can work out different ratios between the master cylinder and the one that you're recording on. So what you could do, there's all sorts of possibilities here. You could start making a lot of duplicates very, very fast by running them very fast, but running the reproducing, the the reproducing cylinder at a different speed, and then you'd end up with the right speed. There are ways of doing it. But eventually what happened was that it was about 1898, 99, and around there, they come out with this monster cylinder machine for sale. And they're expensive, but the sound is phenomenal out of these things, especially if you put a good big horn on them. I have one that's an Edison concert. It has a 5-foot horn on the thing. And I'll tell you, it just blows you away. And the fidelity is so good, you can hear the artist breathing on this thing. I mean, this is unusual for early cylinders, okay? And so what I want to do is play you now an Edison recording that was made of a cylinder done in 1899 by Byron G. Harlan. This is before he got mixed up too much with Collins and started doing what they call coon songs. He was not a classical singer, but a ballad singer to start out with. And this is typical of some of his work. And this is a fairly late cylinder. These things tapered off very quickly once the gold molded records came out. They were louder. You know, the whole process had been improved by that time. And so the benefit of having 5-inch cylinders was pretty much lost by that time. But people still had the machines, and there was still a demand for the cylinders. And you could still get them apparently right up until about 1907 or 8. The cylinders were still available. And this is one, and it's very interesting, this record. See the end of the box, it's got padding inside, and they had a whole bunch of women, you know, cutting up little pieces of felt and gluing them in, and then stapling these little things inside the boxes to keep the cylinder safe. And this is the touch that I really love, is you pull up on this little thing and it lifts the cylinder out of the box for you. So this is really the tail wagging the dog, because this record was pantographed from a small cylinder onto the big one. Okay, it's the same recording exactly that's on the standard size cylinder. And in the end, Edison was pantographing off the hard wax cylinders onto these things because they didn't wear out very fast, and you could pantograph backwards. So originally it was these things pantographing onto soft wax, but in the end it turned out to be the other way around. So I want you to hear this, because this is really amazing sound on this thing. It's terrifying to play, but we'll do it anyway. Nothing lasts forever. By the way, this is a way to keep your cylinders from going moldy. This one started to do it, and by keeping them in wax paper, it's the easiest and cheapest way of stopping the advance of mold. Once it gets too bad, you're dead. You know. Anyway, here we are.
I'm going to hold the horn.
Okay.
The mic.
Do you need the mic?
Well, we might. Let's see what happens.
Okay. By the way, we tacked all these in for the right speed. Pretty loud.
Please, Mr. Conductor, don't put me off the train. Sung by Byron G. Harlan. It is on the record. All lightning express on the photograph.
So there's no flutter. Sounds a lot better now. This is 1899. Now that distortion that you're hearing is not on the record. If you play it on an Edison machine, you don't hear that. sibilants with S's and T's and all that, very clear. But if you've got a half a dozen of these things, it takes up an entire language base. And they're not practical. And so that's one of those tear jerkers. Please, Mr. Conductor, don't put me off the train because, you know, Mother is dying. She's going to die any moment. I can't pay for my fare, and I want to say goodbye before God takes her away. It's one of those songs. But they were very popular. You can try that, sure.
Yeah, here's the new one. Go ahead, Mark.
This is my concert machine, and you got to be very careful with these cylinders. They're quite fragile, and because they were designed to expand and contract to get them out of the mold, I've had an occasion where I put one on a machine, and I guess the mandrel was a little cold, so that the cylinder shrunk a little bit and cracked. So they're very expensive. Yeah, they got to be really careful. So someone was reproducing the cylinders in plastic. So I thought, oh, I got to get one of those because it's much stronger, and I'm never going to probably break this one. But as you go in here, so this is a brand new cylinder. It's made about 10 years ago. This company was making other copies of these cylinders in wax, too, but they're just as fragile as the original, but this is the only one they made out of plastic.
That's about it, and hope you enjoyed hearing some of those things. And you know, the machine that I have that plays those 5-inch concerts has a 5-foot horn on it, big brass horn with a stand and everything. It's really quite spectacular when you hear those things with a horn like that. They're very, very clear. It's unbelievably good sound. You wouldn't think it was a cylinder.
Everybody should have one.
Yeah. Anyway.
Any questions? Yes?
What year did the spring-driven motor come out for Edison?
That home, 1896.
Yeah. But it was developed earlier than that because in this phonogram magazine, 1893 in England, they've got the Greenhill motor, which is essentially that motor, the guy in England. Greenhill. Yeah, it's in here. I think there's an ad for it, in fact.
Well, in England
you could convert your machine over. We've got typewriters in here, simplex bottle emptier.
I'm pretty sure I have a copy of that.
There it is. Yeah. The Greenhill mechanical phonograph motor. This is an 1893.
There was a clock guy that designed it.
Yeah. The problem, of course, using clockwork was that it's a James Watt steam engine governor. That's what that rotating governor. You've seen them at traction shows. They don't go around very fast. And so the first attempts at using one of those governors didn't work very well because they're not sensitive enough that the human ear can be fooled by the thing. I mean, the human ear can tell that the thing's slowing down. Some of the early Columbia disc governors were like that too. Where you play a Caruso record on an very early front mount Columbia disc machine, and you'll hear if you're musical enough, you can hear the pitch dropping, And then the governor realizes, uh-oh, and it speeds up and it overshoots. It's like cars, you remember they used to hunt? You know, and you had them on what, cruise control or something, they would hunt. Yeah, there's that problem. And the trick was, in the end, and this is why the Edison diamond disc machines are so accurate, is to make that governor go like stink. It has to turn really, really fast so that it senses before you do that there's a variation in speed. So that was the trick, and that's what Greenhill came up with that idea. And he realized that was the failing that was necessary. Because the trouble with spring motor is that the energy that it puts out at the beginning of the record is very different from the energy at the end of the record. And that is the basic problem with it. So you have to have something that is sensitive enough that when it realizes that there's not so much energy anymore, it doesn't fail on you and lower the pitch. Yeah, so I've done experiments with diamond disc machines, played two identical machines, get them working beautifully, play the same record simultaneously on both of them, and you can get those things so that you can play a 4 or 4.5 minute diamond disc record, and they will not be out by more than that far at the end of the record. You can synchronize them that accurately just with their own governor. So that's when they really got governors figured out. Of course, once they figure that all out, then you go to another way of doing it with electric. So what the hell?
I have one other question.
Okay.
I've always told anyone that looks at these early brown wax cylinders that these were beeswax.
No.
But you're saying they're not beeswax, but they are a very soft wax.
Sodium stearate.
Yes, sodium stearate.
Yeah.
Sodium stearate.
Stearate.
Which is a soap.
It's a soap. It's a metallic soap.
Yeah.
In other words, none of your beeswax.
Yeah. That quote from Edison said, there's not enough.
They did use beeswax to attach the diaphragms to the stylus bars, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Columbia actually, they said they used carnauba wax in theirs. That sounded good to me.
Yeah. Most of those formulas were secret.
Yeah.
And that's where, you know, one of those guys, what was it? He was the guy second from the right. You didn't mention his name, but
the guy that did the...
He's the wax guy. He's the chemical guy.
Yeah.
He was, that was his guy.
And like I said, they were very secretive.
Oh, yes, they were.
Yeah. Should we finish it up?
Yep.
Okay, we're going to stop. So thank you very much. Please go up and buy your tickets.
Got the lid for it. It's a Columbia box. Oh yeah, there it is. Oh yeah, okay, we just got that wrong lid. Yeah, that's good. Oh, that's your lid. That's my lid. Yes.
Can that thing look like you're showing the paper?
What's that?
Yeah, with that
right? Yeah, yeah.
I'd like to see it.
Yeah.
How are you?
No.
Seeing you out at all? I have that.
I won't. Now, it's annual.
You'd never find one for a music box. It'd be almost impossible.
Well, I'm just going to mail something to the guy who bought it in Colorado. Do you know to put 8 in a box?
I had a guy mail this from Calgary. Just threw them in a box and made it in the winter.
Yeah, well, I used to communicate with a guy in England, Edward Murray Harvey, in the Phonograph Society of London, England. And we sent cylinders back and forth in the early 60s to each other.
He phones me and says, I need work, so I take him stuff.
Make a cylinder in Churchill. We got
on phonograph. I was doing this all properly.
Well, you can do that as well if you don't want to play the records. So there we are. Nice Bluebird records, all sorts of labels, but they're all Glenn Miller. So why don't we start them on both albums? You can take them both for just $20. $20 for the 2 albums. Did I hear somebody guffaw?
Yeah.
All right, Peter, they're yours for
I did it for
10.
everybody else.
They can be yours for $10. How about it? $10 for the pair. That's both of them. Complete the albums. $10, Peter. All right, fine. Oh, 10. I've got $10. I've got a bit of 10 now. 12. 10 now. 12. $10 now. 12. Sold. $10 too.
Hey, Mike. Who's buying them? You're buying them?
Great. A man of taste. You see, you've got to be quick, Peter, if you want to be the expert in the field. Lot number $5 anyway. What? All right. $2. Thank you. $2 now 3. $2 now 3. Now 4.
No, he told me not to get against him.
We're not having intimidation going on in my auction.
This is an auction.
So we have a bid of 3, and Bernie's just we have 4. You missed it, but you can bid with 5.
No.
Now we have 4 bucks in the back.
Got 12.
$5. $4 now 5. 5 I've got now 6. We've got $5 now 6 anyway. $5 now 6. Sold. $5 to Blaine. Good. Lot number 33. A Brown album of country records. So we'll start these off at $100 then for the country records. $100 for the country records. These are very special, aren't they? If they're country records, after all. They must be pretty rare, because who would buy these? I mean, sorry, these would be an excellent buy. When this war is over, blue skies, bring your sweet self back to me. $5. $5 for the whole album and all the records.